Hello, my name is Evan DeMarsh. I'm with the Trends Journal. I'm happy to be interviewing Professor Mohammed Marandi today. He's from the University of Tehran, and he's the man of the hour. Everyone is fighting to get Professor Marandi on their show, and I'm thrilled that he's joining us. He's turned into the United States media's favorite Iranian propagandist. Wouldn't you say, Professor?
Well, I haven't been invited on much American media. It's always been alternative media, except for CNN, which is in an hour or so.
So Professor, I want to get
yeah,
into
of course, they dislike me a lot. They've always disliked me, so that's a good thing.
But is this the first time in a while that you've been on CNN?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't recall the last time I've been on CNN. It's been a very long time, and the same is true with. I mean, during the 12-day war, except for 2 instances, no one contacted me. So it's been a long time.
Okay, so
But
Professor,
I
you were
prefer
just on.
alternative media because they're much more useful, and they're the mainstream media is propaganda. They're the propagandists.
On that kind of note, you were recently on Piers Morgan's show, and it was definitely a confrontational interview where he had a guest on the show that you didn't know was going to be there, and he admitted that you didn't know was going to be there. And then even after the interaction, she went online and posted on social media, and it was actually flagged on X because it was a violent threat. It appeared like a violent threat. I'm going to just read it to you very quickly. This is from, well, I lost what it said, but it essentially said, once the protesters make their stand and overthrow the government in Iran, nothing will be left of you than the tip of your pinky finger. When you see a quote like that posted on social media, Professor, what goes through your mind? Do you get concerned about your own safety? Are you concerned about your own safety after things like that?
Well, first of all, Piers Morgan's team knew exactly who she was, and she also said something like it on the show, and they kept it, even though it was a recorded show. I didn't care who was invited on the show. What was supposed to happen, and what was written, we had a written agreement, was that it would be a one-on-one between me and Piers. Otherwise, I would not have accepted. And as usual, Piers Morgan lied, because this is not the first time he and his team lied to me. Last time I said I will never come again. They insisted. I thought, under those circumstances, I'll try, because of all the propaganda in the West, to do what I can. I am not intimidated, and I have a responsibility to do what is right. During the 12-day war, I was in this building, even though it was evacuated. I'm not looking to die, but I had a responsibility because the internet was slow, and this was the only place where interviews could be done. And I was here when the Iranian radio and television central building was bombed. This whole complex was evacuated, but another building was bombed, and I didn't leave the building because it's something that I feel I have to do. And I have to counter these narratives because it's a bunch of oligarchs, Zionists, neocons, who control the narrative in the West. And there are a lot of alternative media outlets who are trying to create awareness in the West. And therefore, I have to accommodate and help them in any way I can. They're doing heroic work, people like yourself and others, and so I have to do my part.
Professor, I want to get an update on what's going on in Iran, and
But excuse me,
oh, sorry.
This woman's language is reflective of what was going on the streets. The people, these terrorists, these rioters, were slaughtering people. They cut off people's heads. They burned people alive. They murdered. They set fire to a very large clinic, and a young nurse, she burned to death inside. They burned 2 young men alive in a mosque. They surrounded them and threw Molotov cocktails until they burned to death. They cut off the heads of people, and they smashed people's heads in. Yesterday we had a funeral in Tehran, a mass funeral where there were huge crowds. I'll post it. I was posting it now, but the internet's too slow. But 100 people, many of them, most of them police officers, 300 to 400, I think closer to 300 police officers, roughly 100 police officers, 200 volunteers who were securing the streets, and some riot guards and some revolutionary guards. All in all, over 300 were murdered by these people. They tried to take a police station in Tehran and other police stations, and also in other cities. And I tweeted one instance where in the capital, they tried to take a police station and they killed police officers inside. Yet the West insists that these are peaceful protests. Why? They're lying. They know they're lying, but there's an agenda. I think this whole devaluation of the real, which was it was a manipulation done by the Americans in neighboring countries, and then the riots infiltrating the peaceful protests, because we had peaceful protests. There were no arrests. No one was beaten. No one was hurt during the first couple of days. And then we had the riots. And I think that this was all a part of a broader conspiracy so that they can demonize Iran and then make the case for war. Because now we're seeing fake progressives like AOC and Levin both saying the same thing. We have to help the people of Iran. So
Levin is definitely not a progressive. Levin is not a progressive.
No, I'm saying AOC, the fake progressive, and Levin are saying the same thing. Help Iran. What does that mean? What does that mean? Removing the sanctions? Does that mean removing the sanctions that kill kids? Does that mean, it's obvious what it means. So I think that, and of course, the Israelis have admitted that they're involved. I mean, Pompeo, who was the head of the CIA, said Mossad's on the ground in his tweet. Mossad itself put out a Persian statement saying we are on the ground. And then Channel 4 of the Israeli regime said that foreign governments brought in hundreds of weapons and killed hundreds of Iranian officers. They admitted it. Yet Western pundits are upset with the Israelis. They're saying, why are you ruining our narrative of peaceful protesters? So I think all of this is a project.
So we have some reasoning coming out right now. Lindsey Graham, and I saw a post earlier last night on why the U.S. hasn't acted yet in Iran. We had one post that I think it might have been Sputnik, I could be wrong, that said Russia interacted with both countries and both countries told the other, we're not going to take any action. We won't be the first to launch a strike. That's what they said, that Russians intervened. But then we had Lindsey Graham come out today on X, and he said that the Arab allies, he called them so-called Arab allies, they intervened on behalf of Iran to avoid the decisive military intervention from Trump. Do you have any insight on why there hasn't been any escalation there from the U.S.? Is this more subterfuge from the administration? Is anything to be believed out of Washington? What's the feeling in Iran right now?
It's difficult to say because it's Trump and he's constantly flip-flopping and he says one thing one day and another thing another, not just about Iran, about China, about Russia, about internal affairs. No one can really be sure what will happen. The Iranians are preparing for the worst. Obviously, these Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf don't want war because they are very vulnerable and they have American bases there. And the Iranians see them as complicit. And their regimes can easily be destroyed. And if there is war, there will be no oil or gas coming from the Persian Gulf. These monarchies would collapse. Turkey under Erdogan, he recognizes that he's very vulnerable to the Israeli regime, and it's only Iran and the axis of resistance that's really protecting the region from Zionist expansionism. Unfortunately, Erdogan, by taking part in the dirty war in Syria, he's helped the Israeli regime, and ultimately he's weakened his own position and weakened the region. It's not because any of them are fans of the resistance, because they're all doing business and trade or indirectly cooperating with the Israeli regime, even during the genocide. But in any case, who knows? Maybe in the hours to come, the United States will strike. Maybe they'll strike tomorrow night. The Iranians are prepared. The reason why the internet is continuing, I mean, right now I don't have internet where I can communicate with you. I had to come to this studio, and I do interviews in the studio, and then I use the internet here and so on and communicate with people. But when I'm at home, I can only get Iranian websites and Iranian apps and that sort of thing. But one reason why they're still preventing the full restoration of the internet is because of it's quite possible that the Americans would attack. And since they gather a lot of their information through electronic devices and that sort of thing, the Iranians want to keep them in the dark as much as possible. So I don't know what's going to happen. But I have no doubt that Trump will fail, and that if there is a war, it will be a catastrophe of epic proportions for the global economy.
My last question to you, because I know we're on a very limited time right now. 7 in 10 Americans, according to a new Quinnipiac poll out today, said they support war intervention in Iran on behalf of the protesters that are the claims that they're being killed by the regime there. What's your take
what
on?
What poll is this? 7 out of 10.
It's 7 out of 10 according to Quinnipiac. It was. I think it might have been released today. 7 out of 10 Americans disagree with going to war in Iran.
Oh, okay. I thought you said agree.
Oh, maybe I misspoke, but it's a disagree. One thing that I found interesting, I'd like to hear your take on this.
Edmund, look at MAGA. It's clear that Trump core supporters, Epstein is not important. It used to be. You can kill white blonde women and get away with it, no problem. And waging wars, of course, no more wars. That's not important either. So it's obvious that MAGA has zero principles. But it's good to know that most Americans are smart enough to see through the mainstream media propaganda.
Last thing, in the United States, it's very interesting reading social media right now, and those supporting the protesters in Iran and are generally the most vocal are the same ones who support what's going on in Gaza, the massacres and the starvation. So it's kind of like, if you're a humanitarian and truly you really do care about the people's struggle, and you were like,
remove
let's say
the sanctions.
Then, well, it was interesting. Rubio comes out
Stop
yesterday.
killing kids.
Rubio comes out yesterday and says that the U.S. is going to send some care packages into Cuba, all while right after saying they're going to cut them off from all Venezuelan oil. So it's like, all right.
I mean, exactly. I mean, in the case of Iran, don't send in terrorists because Iran is not killing peaceful protesters. Don't send in terrorists. Don't bomb the country. They already attacked the country and killed over 1,000 people in the 12-day war. And don't try to strangle ordinary people. If these people care about humanity, but they don't. And Western media doesn't, and their pundits don't. Even those who say, we're against, I mean, Maduro is evil, but we shouldn't get involved. It won't do any good. Or Iran is evil. We shouldn't. These people are just as sinister as those who advocate war, because they want to be in the mainstream. No, Maduro is far more reasonable and humane than those in Washington, the leadership in Washington, the politicians in Washington who've imposed sanctions on Venezuela to hurt people, who killed 100 people in the Caribbean, who murdered another 100 in Venezuela, and who kidnapped the country's president. They're the ones who are sinister. These pundits have no right to even talk about Maduro, or let alone Iran. But these people are too cowardly to speak out against the U.S. state, because then they will no longer be invited on these TV shows. They will no longer be linked to these think tanks. They won't get that, the money that they get from these oligarch-controlled institutions.
And if you give even a touch of the other side, interviewing someone who talks about why Putin invaded Ukraine, you're an apologist, and you're just as bad. Yeah. You're banned. You're bad. You're a journalist looking for the others. There is no other side. How could you say that? But anyway, we can go on and on. That's another show, Professor. Thank you for joining the Trends Journal. I appreciate it. Good luck.
Always a pleasure, Edmund.
I'll be in touch.